You're standing in an Amish kitchen in January. It's 12 degrees outside, and you're sweating through your shirt. There's no furnace, no propane tank, no electric heater humming in the corner. But the room is warm. Bread is rising on the counter. A baby is sleeping by the window. And you start looking around the way I did, trying to figure out where the heat is even coming from. Here's the truth. I learned the hard way. The Amish don't survive winter by toughing it out. They survive it by knowing 11 quiet rules the rest of us forgot. Rules that were written down, tested, and proven long before the first power line ever crossed a field. And number 7, the one almost nobody talks about, comes straight out of a farming manual published in 1843. I'll give you that one before we're done. It works in a house you already own. No contractor, no permit, no new construction. The first time I walked into a home outside Millersburg, Ohio, I spent a full 20 minutes looking for the thermostat. There wasn't one. There never had been. And the family inside paid almost nothing to stay warm, dry, and fed through the worst winter that part of the country had seen in years. I grew up near Amish country. I thought I understood these people. I didn't. I spent most of my life doing everything the conventional way, paying every bill that landed in my mailbox, trusting that the men who designed my house knew something I didn't. They didn't. They knew how to make me dependent. So let me walk you through the 11 rules, slowly, because each one peels back a little more of the lie we've all been living under. The first rule sounds almost too simple to matter. The Amish never fight the weather. They position against it. Let me explain what I mean. When an Amish family builds a home, the very first decision they make has nothing to do with the floor plan. It has to do with the sun. They watch the land for a full year before they ever break ground. They mark where the sun rises in winter. They mark where it sets. They note which way the cold wind comes from in January and which way the cool breeze drifts in July. Then they build the house to face it. The long side of the home, the side with the most windows, faces south. The kitchen and the rooms where people spend their days sit on that warm side. The cold north side gets the pantry, the storage, the rooms nobody lingers in. That north wall becomes a shield. Now here's the part that stopped me cold. This isn't Amish folklore. This is documented science. A study out of Penn State Extension found that proper solar orientation alone can cut a home's heating demand by as much as 30%. 30%. Before you add a single piece of insulation, before you touch the windows, 30% of your heating bill every winter for as long as you own the house, gone. Just from which way the building faces. And most modern homes, they're built facing whatever way makes the driveway convenient for the developer. Nobody asked the sun, nobody cared. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. You're probably thinking that's fine for someone building new, but my house is already built and already pointing the wrong way. Stay with me. Because the Amish have a fix for that too, and it's coming. The second rule is about mass. And this one changed how I see my own walls. The Amish love thick walls. Stone, brick, heavy plaster, double thick timber. And for years I thought that was just because that's what they had on hand. I was wrong. Thick heavy materials do something a modern stud wall can never do. They store heat. During the day, the sun and the cook stove pour warmth into that mass. The stone soaks it up like a sponge. Then at night, when the fire dies down and the temperature drops, the wall gives that heat back, slowly, for hours. They call it thermal mass. Engineers have studied it for decades. A heavy masonry wall can hold and release enough heat to keep a room from swinging cold overnight, even with no active heating at all. Compare that to the typical American home built after the 1950s. Thin walls, hollow inside. The heat blasts in when the furnace runs, then vanishes the second it shuts off. So the furnace kicks on again and again, and you pay every single time it does. The Amish wall just sits there, warm, patient, costing nothing. But mass without one more ingredient is useless. And that ingredient is the third rule, the one that quietly does more than all the rest combined. Air sealing, stopping the leaks. Here's something most people never realize. In a typical older American home, somewhere between 25 and 40% of your heat doesn't escape through the walls at all. It escapes through cracks, gaps around windows, Holes where pipes enter, the seam where the wall meets the floor, the attic hatch. 1,000 tiny leaks you can't even see. The Department of Energy has measured this for years. They estimate that the average home leaks enough air through these gaps to equal leaving a window wide open all winter long. All winter, a window you're paying to heat, and the heat just pours straight out into the yard. The Amish learned this generations ago without a single blower door test. They learned it because they could feel it. When you heat with a wood stove and you have to split every log by hand, you become very aware of where your heat is going. You feel that cold draft at your ankles and you find the crack that's causing it. And you seal it. They stuff gaps with wool. They pack seams with lime plaster. They hang heavy curtains over doorways. They use what's called a draft stop at the bottom of every door. Simple, cheap, relentless. And here's the number that should make you angry. Sealing the air leaks in an existing home can cut heating costs by 10 to 20%, and the materials cost less than a single month's heating bill. The utility companies know this, the contractors know this, but there's no profit in telling you to spend $40 on caulk and weather stripping when they'd rather sell you a new furnace for $6,000. That's the first time you should start to feel it. The sense that somebody somewhere decided that your ignorance was more profitable than your comfort. Hold on to that feeling, because the fourth rule is where it gets personal. The fourth rule is about the windows, and specifically about what the Amish do at night. You've probably been told that the answer to cold windows is expensive replacement windows. Triple pane, argon gas, $2,000 a window, easy. And maybe more. The Amish never spent a dime on any of that. Instead, they used window quilts and interior shutters. Here's the science nobody mentions. Glass is a terrible insulator. Even a brand new double pane window loses heat fast compared to a wall. But heat loss through a window mostly happens at night when it's coldest and the sun isn't helping. So the Amish simply cover the windows at night. They hang thick quilted fabric panels over the windows after dark. Some build wooden shutters on the inside padded with cloth. The moment the sun goes down, the windows get covered. That trapped pocket of still air between the quilt and the glass does the insulating. Cornell research on window insulation has shown that a well-fitted interior window covering can reduce heat loss through that window by up to 50%, half, from a quilt. A quilt you could make this weekend from materials in your closet. And in the morning, they open them back up on the south side and let the winter sun pour in to reheat all that thermal mass we talked about. It's a daily rhythm. Cover at dusk, open at dawn. No machinery, no bill, just attention. Now, if you already own a house and you're thinking this only applies to people building from scratch, stay with me, because this next part is specifically for you. Everything I've told you so far, the air sealing, the window quilts, the thermal mass, every bit of it can be added to a home that's already standing, especially a home built before 1980. Here's why that year matters. Homes built before 1980 were generally built with more mass and bigger structural bones, but almost no attention to air sealing because energy was cheap and nobody cared. That means your old house has the good bones already, it just has the leaks. And the leaks are the cheapest thing in the world to fix. So here's your weekend project. The one technique you can do right now: take a stick of incense or a single candle and walk slowly around the inside of your home on a windy day. Hold the flame near every window edge, every door frame, every electrical outlet on an exterior wall, every spot where a pipe comes through. Watch the smoke. Where it dances sideways, you found a leak. Mark it with a piece of tape. Then spend one Saturday and $40 sealing every spot you marked. Caulk for the still cracks, weather stripping for the doors and windows that open, foam gaskets behind the outlet covers. And yes, those cheap little gaskets stop a shocking amount of cold air. Outlets on outside walls are like tiny open vents straight into your insulation. People who do just this one thing report their drafts disappear and their heating bills drop the very first month. No contractor set foot in the house. No permit was ever pulled. No inspector ever knew. It's your house, your candle, your $40. That's the existing home fix. And it's just the beginning. Because the fifth rule is the one that made me realize how badly we've all been played. The fifth rule is to heat the person, not the house. Think about how a modern home works. You set a thermostat to 70 degrees, and a machine works furiously to keep every cubic foot of air in your house at 70. The closets, the hallways, the space up by your 9-foot ceilings where nobody's head ever goes, you heat all of it all the time. Whether you're standing in it or not, the Amish thought that was insane. And honestly, when you say it out loud, it is. They heat the people. They heat the spaces where bodies actually are. A wood stove in the main room where the family gathers. Warm bricks wrapped in cloth and tucked into the foot of the bed. Heavy wool clothing. A soapstone heated on the stove and carried from room to room. Thick rugs so cold doesn't climb up through the floor. There's a documented practice from old Pennsylvania German households of heating a flat stone or a brick by the stove, wrapping it in flannel, and placing it in the bed an hour before sleep. That one warm stone could keep a bed comfortable through the whole night. No heat wasted on the empty rooms. No furnace cycling at 3 in the morning to warm a house full of sleeping people who are already under heavy quilts. We were sold the opposite idea. We were taught that comfort means heating empty air. And every degree of that empty air shows up on a bill that somebody else collects. But heating the person only works if the heat you make is efficient in the first place. And that brings us to the 6th rule, where the real engineering shows up. The 6th rule is the masonry heater. And this is one of the most brilliant pieces of forgotten technology in North America. A regular wood stove or fireplace is shockingly wasteful. An open fireplace can send up to 90% of its heat straight up the chimney. You burn a whole cord of wood and most of the warmth never reaches the room. You're heating the sky. The masonry heater works on a completely different principle. You build a small, very hot, very fast fire inside a massive stone or brick structure. The fire burns hot and clean, sometimes in just an hour or two, but the smoke doesn't go straight up. It winds through a long, twisting channel built into all that masonry, giving up its heat to the stone the whole way. By the time the smoke leaves, it's nearly cool. Almost all the heat has been captured. Then that giant warm stone radiates gentle heat into the home for the next 12 to 20 hours from one short fire. This isn't new. Masonry heater sets have been used in Northern Europe and among German settlers in Pennsylvania for centuries. The design was refined and documented well over 200 years ago. They can reach efficiencies above 80% compared to maybe 10 or 15% for an open fireplace. 2 short fires a day. That's it. That's how you heat a stone house in a brutal winter on a fraction of the wood your neighbor burns. Now, I told you at the start that I'd give you the rule from that 1843 farming manual. The one almost nobody talks about. We're getting close, but I need you to understand rules 7 through 10 first, because the finale only lands once you see the whole picture. The 7th rule is about the cellar. The Amish understood the ground itself is a free climate control system. Dig down about 4 feet anywhere in the northern United States, and something remarkable happens. The temperature stays nearly constant all year, around 50 to 55 degrees. It doesn't freeze in January. It doesn't bake in July. The earth holds steady. The Amish built their cellars and root cellars to use this. 55 degrees is too cold to live in, but it's a miracle for food. A root cellar keeps potatoes, apples, carrots, cabbages, and canned goods fresh for months with no electricity at all. No refrigerator, no freezer, no power bill, just a hole in the ground built right. The University of Arizona and other extension programs have documented that a properly built root cellar holds produce through an entire winter, and the storage life of root vegetables in those conditions can stretch 4 to 6 months or more. Think about what that means. The Amish family I visited had a winter's worth of food sitting in cool darkness under their feet, and it cost them nothing to keep it there. Meanwhile, we run a refrigerator and a chest freezer around the clock every day of the year, paying the electric company for the privilege of keeping food that the ground would have kept for free. And here's the part that should make you sit up. You can build a small root cellar into the corner of an existing basement, or even bury a clean trash can in the ground in the right spot. People have done it for generations. The earth doesn't send a bill. That 55-degree ground leads straight into the 8th rule, because that same steady earth temperature can cool a house in summer. The 8th rule is moving air without electricity. Heat rises, cool air sinks. Everyone knows this. The Amish built their entire homes around it. They placed low vents and windows on the cool, shaded north side, and high vents or windows up top, often in the attic or a cupola. Cool air gets pulled in low. As it warms, it rises and escapes high. That creates a constant, gentle current pulling fresh air through the house. They call it the stack effect, and it costs absolutely nothing to run. No fan, no motor, no electric bill in July. Pair that with the cool air rising up out of the cellar, and you have a home that stays comfortable through a heat wave while the rest of the neighborhood is paying through the nose to run the air conditioning all day and all night. I watched a family in Lancaster County stay cool in August in a stone house with no electricity while I was sweating in my truck with the air conditioner on full blast. That was the day something inside me finally broke, because I realized everything I'd been paying for every single month was a problem somebody had already solved 200 years ago and simply chosen not to tell me about. And that's the question that started keeping me up at night. But before I go any further, I want to tell you something important. If everything I've shared in this video resonates with you, I've spent years pulling this knowledge together into something you can hold in your hands and use. I wrote the Amish Pantry Blueprint and the Amish Stockpile Blueprint specifically to give you the complete system, not just the rules, but the step-by-step methods the Amish use to stock, store, and protect everything that keeps a household alive through any season. Both are included in the Complete Amish Resilience Field Edition, available right now through the link in the description for $97. It's the library they tried to bury, rebuilt for the home you already own. Now, back to the question that was keeping me up at night, because the answer leads straight into the 9th rule. Who decided I shouldn't know this? That's the 9th rule. And it's not a building technique, it's a warning. The 9th rule the Amish live by is this: never become fully dependent on a system you don't control. Stop and think about how exposed the modern home really is. The power goes out and your heat dies, your food spoils, your water stops, your stove won't light. One ice storm, one grid failure, one company deciding to raise the rate, and you're helpless in your own home. The Amish looked at that arrangement and said, no. Not because they're against progress, but because they understand something we forgot. When you can't produce your own heat, your own light, your own food, and your own water, you don't really own your home. You're renting your survival from whoever controls the lines coming into it. And here's where the villain finally steps out of the shadows. Because the way our modern homes are built, the way they were made dependent, was not an accident. In the early 20th century, as electric and gas utilities spread across the country, there was an enormous financial incentive to build homes that consumed as much energy as possible. The more dependent your house, the bigger the bill, the bigger the profit. Whole neighborhoods were designed around constant energy consumption. The old self-sufficient designs, the thick walls, the solar orientation, the root cellars, the masonry heaters, were quietly labeled old-fashioned and pushed aside. Not because they didn't work, because they worked too well. A house that heats itself doesn't generate a monthly payment. And a customer who doesn't generate a monthly payment is a customer the utility doesn't want. That's the 10th rule, and it's the hardest one to swallow. The 10th rule is that the knowledge was never lost, it was buried. Every technique I've described to you was documented, written down in farming manuals, building guides, and agricultural records going back to the 1800s. The USDA itself published bulletins in the early 1900s explaining root cellars, home insulation, and natural ventilation in plain language for any farmer to follow. This wasn't secret knowledge, it was common knowledge. And then, over a couple of generations, it was simply allowed to fade. The manuals went out of print, the skills stopped being taught, a whole country forgot how to keep itself warm, because forgetting was profitable for somebody. The Amish are the ones who refused to forget. While the rest of America was wiring up and plugging in and signing up for a lifetime of monthly bills, these communities quietly kept the old knowledge alive. They kept building the thick walls. They kept facing the sun. They kept the root cellars cool and the masonry heaters warm. They preserved the entire library of self-sufficiency that the rest of us threw away. And that brings me to the 8th rule's older cousin, the 7th secret I promised you. The one from 1843, the 11th rule, the finale. Here it is. In 1843, there was a widely circulated American farming and household manual, part of the wave of agricultural guides published in that era, that described a practice most people today have never heard of. It was called banking the house. Here's what it means. In the late fall, before the first hard freeze, the family would pile material against the entire base of the house, all the way around the foundation, up against the bottom of the walls. They used straw. They used dried leaves packed into bundles. They used soil, some banked with corn stalks bundled tight. Out in the colder regions, they'd bank with snow once it came, because packed snow is a surprisingly good insulator. This blanket of material did something incredibly important. The foundation and the bottom of the walls and the floor are where an enormous amount of heat escapes and where the cold creeps up into the house. The cold attacks from the ground up. Banking the house wrapped the entire base in a thick insulating skirt. It stopped the cold from getting under the floor. It kept the cellar from freezing. It cut the drafts at the bottom of the walls to almost nothing. Old records and agricultural reports from that period describe banked houses staying dramatically warmer at floor level through the deep winter, with families reporting they could finally keep their feet warm and their cellars from freezing solid. It was so common that the spring chore of unbanking the house, raking all that material away once the thaw came, was simply part of the rhythm of the year. And here is why this is the perfect finale for you. You can do this to a house you already own this weekend with no money at all. Go out and pile leaves, straw, or mulch against the base of your house all the way around, 8 to 12 inches deep, right up against the foundation and the bottom of the siding. If you have bales of straw, stack them along the north and west walls where the cold wind hits hardest. That's it. That's the whole technique. You will feel the difference at floor level within days. The cold that used to creep up through your floors and around your baseboards gets stopped at the wall. Your furnace runs less, your feet stay warm, and in the spring you rake it into your garden as mulch. Nothing wasted. A practice from 1843. Free. Permit-free, contractor-free, sitting in plain sight in a manual almost nobody has opened in 100 years. That's the 11th rule. That's banking the house. And now it's yours. Take a breath and look at what you're holding now. 11 rules. Face the sun. Build with mass. Seal the leaks. Quilt the windows. Heat the person. Burn hot and slow with mass. Store food in the earth. Move air for free. Refuse total dependence, remember what was buried, and bank the house against the cold. None of it requires you to be Amish. None of it requires a new house. Most of it costs less than 1 month of the bills you're paying right now. And all of it was true the whole time, sitting in old manuals and quiet farmhouses, while you were told the only way to stay warm was to keep paying. You didn't lose this knowledge. It was taken from you, quietly, on purpose. Because a self-sufficient home is a home that nobody gets to bill. And now you have it back. If you're the kind of person who believes real knowledge has been pushed aside to protect somebody else's profit, then you already know exactly what to do next. So tell me one thing in the comments. Out of all 11 rules, which one are you going to do first? Is it the candle test for the leaks, or is it banking the house with leaves this weekend? I read these, and I want to know which one hit you hardest. Just say the number. Leave a comment right now and tell me. And if this opened your eyes even a little, subscribe and stand with the rest of us who are taking this knowledge back, one forgotten rule at a time. Because the next one I'm working on is the Amish method for getting clean, drinkable water without a single pump, a single wire, or a single bill. There's a way they did it that predates every well permit in this country, and once you see it, you'll never look at your faucet the same way again. I'm Eli Yoder. Keep what they tried to make you forget, and I'll see you in the next one.